All right, we're going to give you just a couple more minutes to make your way to your seats so we can begin the program. We got a lot to cover tonight. All right, I want to welcome everybody to the AGAPE Fall Southern Social, even though technically it's not fall yet, but we're going to continue to go with that name. So we are very honored to have you here tonight. There's a lot of things you could have done tonight. There's a lot of places you could have been, and you've chosen to be here. And we are grateful for that. We thank you, and we are honored by your presence. I'm Chandler Means, Executive Director for AGAPE. I've been Executive Director. I've had the privilege and honor of being the Executive Director there for 13 years. And so we're excited about tonight, sort of. Excited is maybe not the right word to talk about the theme tonight, Beauty from Ashes, but we are very happy and honored that you are here. So on behalf of the board, our board at AGAPE, on behalf of our staff, that's here. We thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time with us, and we hope that tonight you will be encouraged and inspired and convinced that your time was well invested here with us tonight. AGAPE's mission is to strengthen children and families with the healing love of Christ, and we do that through three different programs since 1950, for 59 years, since 1967. We first began to offer these programs. Our programs are foster care, adoption, and also unplanned pregnancy services. We also have a robust counseling program. And then we also serve victims of domestic violence through our Morning Star Sanctuary and court advocacy program. And tonight, that is the program that we are going to focus on tonight. There's about 3,500 people that we will touch throughout the course of the year through these three programs. But as I said tonight, if you were here last year, you remember we focused on foster care with Bishop Martin, but tonight our program will focus on our services and our program for domestic violence victims. But before we begin, I want to just take a minute and kind of run through some of our sponsors who are here tonight and are really help make this night possible. First, a special thank you to Woodmont Hills Church here. So I think this is our fourth year. This is a great venue. We're so thankful and blessed to be able to use this venue each year. We also want to thank Loden Vision Centers. Thank you for their sponsorship, for Bobby Mannery Foundation, for the HCA Healthcare, for Allen Printing, Moffitt Builders, Randy and Nancy Cornwell, who are always so supportive, the Swafford Law Firm, Linda Johnston, Maryland Farms Family Dentistry, our friends from Price Point Furniture, Corky's Barbecue, and The Wedding Plate. And of course, to all of our table hosts and sponsors tonight, who are such truly great ambassadors for the work that we do. Thank you for being our sponsors, our hosts tonight, and for inviting guests so that they can learn more about the work that we do. It's going to be a kind of a fast-paced night, but it will be a while. And we've got a lot of things to cover. We've got a lot of things we want you to know about. But the last few days have been kind of heavy. It's a heavy subject. Last few days have been heavy. Been somber, been solemn with public events that have occurred. And of course today is, as we all know, is 9/11. Tonight, our program and conversation will be about some difficult topics around domestic violence. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience some form of domestic violence in their lifetime. For some here tonight in this audience, That's not just a statistic. You've lived it. So tonight, if at any point you feel the need to step out, please do so. 3 of our professional counselors are here this evening, and they would be honored to speak with you and to sit with you and to talk. We all know what today is. It's 9/11. We want to acknowledge the weight of that. I'm going to ask some of our guests to come up here and speak for just a moment before we eat. But I'd like to ask Lieutenant Joseph and Lieutenant Michelle Hammond to come up and just say a word here in a minute. We're very excited, glad to have them as representatives of the community that we serve and the partners that we serve with both the police department and with the sheriff's department. So I want to thank you both for being here tonight and for saying a few words on our behalf.
Good evening. Today is September 11th, a date forever etched in our national memory. We pause tonight to remember the 2,977 lives lost in the horrific terrorist attacks in 2001. We honor their memory, their families, and the resilience that shaped our nation in the days that followed. That date changed everything. In the wake of 9/11, nearly every part of America, life shifted. We created the Department of Homeland Security. The TCA was born, and for more than 22 years, we have taken off our shoes in the airport. We fought wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Our government, schools, and businesses introduced lockdown and active shooter drills. At Ground Zero, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum now stand in reverence and beside the towering One World Trade Center. Even the way we design our buildings has changed. Many now include anti-terrorism features to protect against our future attacks. These were sweeping, visible responses to a tragedy that shook our foundations. Now I ask you to join me in a moment of silence for the lives lost on that day and for the generations forever changed by it.
Tonight, we must also shine a light on a quieter, ongoing tragedy, one that doesn't often make national headlines, but continues to take lives every single day. Since 2001, more than 30,000 people, mostly women, have been murdered by intimate partners in the United States. That's more than 10 times the number of lives lost on 9/11. Think about that. If we observed one moment of silence for each domestic violence victim in the last 24 years, we would be silent for nearly 3 weeks. These aren't just numbers. They are mothers, daughters, sons, and friends. They lived in homes that should have been safe, but instead became dangerous and sometimes deadly. But let's bring this closer to home. Here in Nashville, domestic violence homicides are tragically common. Last year, 11 lives were lost in the year of 2024. But by June of this year, we had already surpassed that number. And today the toll stands at 15. And just like 9/11, these tragedies reverberate far beyond the moment they occur. They ripple through families, through neighborhoods, and entire communities, leaving scars that can take years to heal and sometimes never fully fade. Tonight, we remember them too. And as representatives of your local law enforcement, we're committed to building a world where home is a place of safety and not fear. We work hand in hand with AGAPE to help those that are suffering inside of their homes that are not safe. and with AGAPE providing shelter and program for these victims. Tonight, we invite you to join us in that effort.
Thank you, Judge and Lieutenant Hammond, for being here tonight. I'm going to ask John Stallworth if he would come up. We'll have just a moment. We'll have a time of prayer. And we're going to get to the food here in just a minute. We have a few instructions before we do that. But at this time, I'm going to ask John just to come on up and have our prayer. So as representatives of your local law enforcement, recommit to building a world where home is a safe place, not fear. Just like Lieutenant Hammond said, we work closely with both the Sheriff's Office and the Metro Nashville Police Department, and with the Mayor's Office, who we will hear from a little bit later on tonight. John?
Thank you, Chandler. If you would, let's bow together. Father God, we thank you so much for each and every person that is here, who has their head bowed to you in this moment. Father, we recognize you as the creator of all, and Father, we pray that this evening will be blessed by your hand. Father, we thank you for those who seek to do your work and who are here and have a heart to help. Father, this world is broken. Father, the reason that sin is persistent in this world is because there's an absence of you in so many hearts. And Father, we pray that tonight that this world will turn to you, and Father, that they will fill their hearts and their minds with you and your will for mankind. Father, for those who labor each hour in this tireless effort of AGAPE and its so many ministries that it encompasses, Father, each hour of every day, there are those who are hurt, their world is shattered. And Father, then there's a hand that reaches out who seeks to do your work and your will, and then suddenly you appear. Father, then there's light and there's hope. And Father, then there's a hope for a better tomorrow in that life. Father, we thank you for that blessing. We thank you for the blessing of AGAPE and all of its ministries that it serves. And Father, we thank especially those who labor at AGAPE. Father, thank you for blessing them. Father, thank you for the blessing of this evening. We thank you for the food, each breath that you allow us to have. And Father, we lift all of the glory of this evening to you. And it's in Jesus' most holy name that we pray. Amen.
All right, so now the part that we've kind of been looking a little bit forward to and probably thinking, why are we taking so long to get there? The dinner part, the food part. But we have some instructions before we do that. So, and I do want to say, I'm not sure I introduced John. John is our vice chair of the board and also one of the shepherds, elders at Mount Juliet Church of Christ. Thank you, John, for participating in a prayer tonight. So dinner will be served buffet style. I'm going to read this word for word. Dinner will be served buffet style. We'll dismiss you by tables. Don't go anywhere until somebody dismisses you, please. You'll mess up the whole routine. You'll notice dessert already at your place setting. Your adults, feel free to eat dessert before your meal. That's up to you. And if you need a gluten-free option, those are available in the back. While you wait for your table to be called to the buffet, and we're going to get you through there really quick, we encourage you to use the fact or myth cards at your table. Maybe just go around and share those. Each one say a fact or a myth and see if you can guess it. But we want you to do, hopefully you'll engage in this a little bit just to spark some conversation and deepen awareness of the issue that we're here to address tonight. At your seat, you'll also find a really nice booklet and program, and we hope you'll take that. Our sponsors are on the back. You'll see our champions that we're going to honor here in just a little bit later on tonight in there, and a little bit of information about them. But we also hope that you will take that with you and maybe share that and use that as a reference as you have conversations with people about this issue or this concern. The small magnet at your place is a gift from us, a reminder of the lives that tonight that we're trying to change, that we're working to change. So with that, I will turn it over to the dismissers, and enjoy your meal, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hello, hello. Please continue to enjoy your meal. We're going to get started with our program. We want to use our time wisely because we know your time is valuable, and we are so appreciative of all of you being here tonight. It's a great encouragement to everybody associated with AGAPE to see just this wonderful crowd, a room full, and to see that you are supporting the mission of our organization. My name is Tara Swafford, and I have the honor of serving as the board chair for the upcoming year. And there are just some wonderful men and women on our board. They're listed in your program. It's an honor to serve with them, and we together want to thank you for being here tonight. We want to get the show on the road, and the first thing that we have to take care of is a great thing. It's the Champions of the Year Award. I assure you that the people we're going to honor tonight did not do the things they've done for the past 25 years in anticipation of getting an award at this dinner. But we want to honor them and thank them. And so let me tell you a little bit about them. In 1998, a group of faithful and determined volunteers recognized that more could and should be done to support victims of domestic violence abuse. So Morning Star Sanctuary was begun by the Madison Church of Christ in 1986. Under the leadership of Nick Boone, Rudy Smith, Gina Hull, and Melna Fulbright, the shelter offered safety and support, but these advocates knew that healing takes longer than the 60 days that was allotted for you to be in an emergency shelter if you were a victim. So they imagined what it would mean for survivors to have mentors, guides to walk alongside them with encouragement, counseling, education, and community support. So from that idea, the mentoring program was begun at Morning Star. The first mentoring meeting took place with 3 volunteers and 2 survivors gathered around a table with just 1 pizza. And through the word of mouth, the program quickly grew. Patsy Flatt recruited Brentwood Hills Church of Christ members Mary Lee Thompson and Linda Johnston, who answered the call and quickly rose to have a leadership position with that group. From the very beginning, Morning Star Sanctuary Mentoring Program has brought lasting change to survivors of domestic violence and their children. Most participants have broken free from abuse. They've gone on to buy homes, get advanced degrees, build careers, and live independently, with very few ever returning to their abuser. At the heart of this successful program is a strong faith-based community. Each month, survivors gather for a shared meal and encouragement while their children are cared for and supported in a safe environment. Dedicated volunteers, many of whom are here tonight, give thousands of hours each year, walking alongside survivors to build confidence, life skills, and hope for the future. Today, this program continues to serve dozens of survivors, and it's believed to be the only one of its kind in Tennessee, and certainly the only one in our nation that has been in existence for more than 25 years. And perhaps the most extraordinary part about it is that it has always been entirely volunteer-led. At its heart, one woman has carried the Herculean task of leadership steadfastly for more than 25 years, Mary Lee Thompson. So tonight we are honoring her and the other visionaries of the mentoring program. Our 2025 Champions of the Year are Gina Hull, Melna Fulbright, Linda Johnston, Mary Lee Thompson, and the late Rudy Smith and Nick Boone. I think you have their pictures to see. Their faith, courage, and commitment have built a legacy of hope that continues to change lives even as we speak. And it's not only the survivors who have had their lives changed, it's the people who have helped in the mentoring program. A former board member, Dr. Kelly Rice, recently said, "These ladies were my inspiration, the people I looked up to and aspired to be like." So selfless, to say the least. Much, much more could be said about these individuals, but tonight we simply invite you to join us in celebrating these champions, and we ask that they stand so that we can recognize them. If they would stand, and their families, please. And in addition, we want to also honor those who have been volunteers in the mentoring program. So if you've served as a mentor, provided food or childcare, donated gift cards or groceries, or supported survivors and their families in any way, please stand so we can recognize you as well. Come on. I know there's a lot more of you who did not stand up. Yeah. So, Morning Star Sanctuary has been just a great thing for AGAPE. You know, it merged with AGAPE, just giving you a history lesson, I believe back in 2017, and has become one of our 3 pillars of the service focus that we have. And the advocacy part of it that you've heard about and you will hear about is a very important component. And, you know, we thank the people who started Morning Star and brought it to AGAPE, and especially the people we've honored tonight who have been involved with it for so long. We can't fully honor the extraordinary leadership of Ms. Thompson in the time we have tonight, but we look forward to doing that at the October 23rd mentoring meeting, and we warmly invite you to join us. You can RSVP for that, and the details are in your program. So now we're moving on to our speakers. Tonight we are honored to hear from voices whose life and work have transformed how we understand and respond to domestic violence, not only here in Nashville, but across the country and around the world. In case you didn't know, Nashville has been a leader in the effort, thanks in large part to the people we've already talked about tonight, our partners in law enforcement, the mentoring program, the persons who began Morning Star Sanctuary, and all the volunteers for the domestic violence program. To carry that momentum forward, we are welcoming our next 3 speakers, and I'm going to introduce them to be efficient, and then they will come up and speak to you. Our first speaker and our featured speaker is Mark Wynn. He is a national expert on domestic violence prevention. He's a Fulbright specialist. He's a survivor who turned his personal trauma into a lifelong mission to protect women and children. As a former Nashville police lieutenant, he helped create the country's largest domestic violence investigative unit. He's trained professionals all over the world. He's been on Dateline. He's been on the Oprah Winfrey Show, PBS. He's the subject of a documentary that we will see a clip from. It's entitled, "This is Where I Learned Not to Sleep." And he's also closely connected to the Mary Parrish Center, which is a transitional center for domestic violence survivors that he founded with his late wife, Valerie, in honor of his mother. After Mark, we will hear from Angie Henderson, who I had the pleasure of dining with this evening. She's the Vice Mayor of Nashville and the President of the Metro Council. She grew up in Nashville, raised her family here, and she will speak to us from the perspective of a legislature and the policy issues. And so we look forward to hearing what she has to say. Then we will hear from David Estes. He is the preacher at the Western Hills Church of Christ. You can read some more about him in the program, but I just want to add a personal note because I know David. He, in addition to being the minister at Western Hills, he has also served as the director of YES, and he is also a victim of domestic abuse. And for many months, actually over a year, our family attended Western Hills. Even though we live in southern Williamson County and Western Hills is all the way over the other side of Davidson County. And we attended the church. It was very welcoming, but the main reason was because of David. He is a powerful minister with a powerful story to tell. I can't even remember sermons that he preached, and I can't say that for every preacher I've ever heard in my life, but I can say that about David because he speaks from the heart and he speaks from experience. And in reflecting on this night, I was thinking one of his sermons came to mind, and it was on anger. And I don't know if I've attended church all my life. I don't know if I've ever heard a sermon on anger, but I heard it from him. And he explained, sources of anger and what happens when someone who's angry explodes. And he used another graphic. I remember the PowerPoint, and I won't mention it because we're eating. But he talks about how anger explodes on the victim and how it affects the victim. And it was a message that, I think about often. He has wonderful things to say, and we are blessed to have all three of these people speak to us tonight. So please join me as we watch a clip from the documentary, This Is Where I Learned Not to Sleep, and as we welcome, after that clip, a true champion for justice, Mark Wynn, to the stage.
It's the house where we ran from, the last place we lived in the state of Texas. He hit her in the kitchen one day and knocked her out. And it sounded like a gun had gone off, and I thought he shot her. And I didn't run, but I slowly walked into the doorway. And she was laying on the floor, covered in blood, and she was laying between him and the refrigerator. And he stepped over her, opened the refrigerator door, and pulled out a can of beer and opened it. And then he walked out on this side porch right here. And I took a rag out of the sink and rubbed her. But she was covered in blood. I got the blood out of her face, and she pulled herself up from the floor, and she looked like something of a horror movie. And there's a steak knife on the kitchen counter, and she scooped it up, and she was going to go out the door and stab him. He was standing on the porch here with his beer in his hand, and got the knife out of her hand, and she grabbed a baseball bat. I was playing Little League Baseball here in Lancaster. She kicked the screen door open and hit him in the back of the head. The porch was, it seemed to me in those days, was pretty high, and he knocked him out, ruptured his eardrums, cracked his skull. My mother and I, my youngest sister, we all ran.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Tara. Thank you all for inviting me here tonight to your event. I am really impressed. This is a big crowd. I've been doing this work a while, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the work that I've done, but I want to talk about Nashville a little bit. It is hope you don't mind my glasses. It is an honor and a privilege to be in the room with my fellow Tennesseans and my fellow civil rights workers, because the work that the folks do in this field every day is about protecting human and civil rights. I have been, and I will always be, a cheerleader for my city. Like Tara said, has become a role model for the country and beyond, and how it makes the law keep its promise. The good people of Nashville understand very well that the homes filled with violence are the wellspring for tomorrow's crime. Children, and I can tell you this firsthand, they are exposed to unbelievable amounts of violence. They hear and they witness the emotional abuse. They see the aftermath. They intervene. They're involved in the power dynamic. They're blamed for the violence. They witness the assaults of the mother and forced to watch. They suffer direct and often physical violence and death. And I can tell you, as a detective on your police department working in homicide, I've seen far too many children murdered in domestic violence cases. So for those of you who do this work, I know you do it because it's an act of love, but it's got an incredible amount of emotional labor to it. And for many of you, it also carries danger. Every officer, every deputy, this is for the officers in the room, have accepted that in order to make the law keep its promise, you're called on to risk your life for people you don't know. You go into harm's way every day protecting families filled with violence. One of the many reasons why law enforcement is such a noble profession. And I just want to add to this. In my time at the police department, I lost 4 friends killed responding to or dealing with domestic violence offenders. Paul Scurry, Billy Bolin, Jerry Newsom, and Lynn Hicks, Goodlettsville Police. These were all friends. I was at the scene of every one of them. And it helps you focus when you stand over a crime scene where an officer has been killed in the line of duty. And it is a noble profession. But I also want to thank the officers here and out and beyond. Thank you, because my family was one of those families that you risk your life for. I know you don't do this work because you can drive fast and every once in a while you get a free cup of coffee. You want the world to be safer. Today, the next generation of my family is patrolling the streets of Tennessee, Texas, and Florida as police officers, as social workers, and as advocates. So my family thanks your family. And I want to thank AGAPE, a true cornerstone in Middle Tennessee, serving children and families in crisis since 1966, and especially Morning Star. And I see Gina's here tonight. Gina and Rudy, I worked with both very well over the years. I call them the original gangsters in the work. It's a great shelter program, and it's been a leader in the effort into working with thousands of families and children over the years, and it's helped transform and reform and strengthen our city's families for 59 years, if my math is right, 1966. And I know that AGAPE and Morning Star will be there in the future. We're going to need you and your helping hands and your big hearts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd also like to just dedicate this keynote, if I could, to my partner, my wonderful wife, Valerie. You heard about her, Valerie Cochavalla, first generation Italian American, advocate. I lost her to ovarian cancer in 2020, and I carry her and my mother, Mary Parrish, everywhere I go. We collaborated for years in this work, and today is, if she were still with me, would be our 26th wedding anniversary. Thank you. So the film clip that you saw was from a documentary that we worked on for 5 years, and we've shown it around the country to police and judges and communities. And I do a lot of community coordinated response, going to small towns, helping them get together and understanding their differences and mending ways and building a clear path and a common vision, to working in these issues. And the Mary Parrish Center, I hope Mary Catherine Rand's here tonight. I'm not sure. She's the director of the Mary Parrish Center. Her and her staff have created a loving, caring home for victims, not just to survive, but to flourish. And flourishing is really important. I mean, it's wonderful that you can live another day, but to walk out of a program with a car and a scholarship and medical insurance and teeth that's been knocked out of your face by an offender is a pretty big deal in my mind. My mother, Mary Parrish, who it's named after, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders with 5 children and an abusive husband. The journey started with us in Tennessee, and ended in Texas. And the violence grew gradual, and then it got to life-threatening, and it never slowed its pace. We moved from place to place. The police would chase us from town to town, and we were that problem family. I remember one night in South Dallas. My brother later became a Dallas police officer, and my nephew. And I remember one night in South Dallas, the police came to our house, and my mother and I went out to meet the police that we were instructed to. And we were standing there on the porch, this little shack that we lived in, and the Dallas officer walked up the porch, and before my mother could even introduce herself, he said, "If I come back out here one more time, everybody's going to jail." And I held on to my mother. I think I was 5, and I had my arm around her leg, and I could feel her body trembling. And folks, let me just tell you, it is one thing for a parent to hold a trembling child. It's a whole nother thing for a child to hold a trembling parent, especially at the age of 5. I never forgot it. As long as I lived, I watched over the years the Dallas police, the Fort Worth police, the Texarkana police, the Oklahoma City police, wherever we lived. He would fight these officers, and I felt so sorry for him. But I got my first lessons in officer survival in my living room, not in my academy here at the Nashville Police Department. The beatings got worse. I watched him beat into 2 miscarriages. He pushed drive a speeding car one night downtown Dallas doing about 50 miles an hour for no reason whatsoever. My brother and I were in the back seat, and he got out and pulled over and put her back in the front seat, and she looked dead to me. And he drove her to Parkland Hospital. Some of you know Parkland. It's pretty famous. This was in 1962. And they saved my mother's life. I remember very well the next year, I was in school in Dallas when the president was shot. They took him to the same hospital. He didn't survive, but my mother did. They saved her life. So my brother and I had decided after we got out of the hospital that we were going to take care of things ourselves. So we tried to kill him. And I'll give you the short version of this, and the statute of limitation has run out, so you can't charge me with anything. I check with my lawyer before I do these speeches, so. So we decided, and 7-year-old and 12-year-old, 2 future cops, we decided to stab him to death. And he was a professional alcoholic on top of everything else. He was a crop duster, so those are really dangerous, crazy jobs, but he had over the years. But anyway, he would drink all the time, so my brother and I decided to stab him. Then my brother at the last minute said, we can't stab him because Dallas police hits him in the head with the sticks. It doesn't affect him, so we need to do something else. So we had a big bottle of Black Flag bug spray. Y'all remember that old glass bottle, green bottle? We had a big bottle of it on the kitchen sink. We snuck it into his bedroom, emptied his bottle. He had a bottle of Mad Dog on the nightstand. Y'all know Mad Dog? Yeah. It's fine wine for him. We emptied it out, and we filled it up and put it back on his nightstand and waited for him to wake up. And about an hour later, he's sitting in front of us drinking his poison, drank every drop of it. Didn't roll over, he didn't die. I mean, I'm waiting on like the cartoon bug, with his feet in the air. That didn't happen. Thank God it didn't, because I turned to my brother and I said, when's he going to die? He said, I don't know. I said, if he's not going to die, then I'm going to go out and play. So that was my schedule for the day. Get up, eat breakfast, kill your stepdad, go out and play. But let me just tell you this, folks. If this man had died, all of us would have gone to jail. The entire family would have been locked up. I would have gone into the juvenile system in Texas, graduated to adult prison system, and I wouldn't be standing here in Nashville, Tennessee tonight. I'd be probably getting out of the lunch line in Huntsville, Texas, where the main prison is, because I would have been an offender. That could have happened to me, because when I got on the police department here in Nashville, I saw me every time I saw a child at a domestic violence call. It just broke my heart over and over again. We escaped. My brother ran away at 16, joined the Marine Corps at 17, went to Vietnam at 18. My 2 older sisters ran away. My My youngest sister and I, my mother, we ran with the clothes on our back. We made it back to Tennessee where our family was. And we escaped. And then I got on the police department. I remember this very well. I swore an oath. I took my badge with a police department who had old ideas about domestic violence. But there was a light, there was an opportunity. Joe Casey was a fine man. He nurtured me. I don't know why. But he gave me the opportunity, and it was a lifetime chance to be agent of change. And then later on, I worked for Chief Kirshner, and he wasn't as patient. I think Chief Kirshner used to tell me, "You're more trouble than you're worth, boy." And I was. An advocate who mentored me at the police department encouraged me to talk about my own story to my own police department. And I told her, "Lord," this was in the 80s, I said, "I can't do that. No, men don't talk about these things. Guys, we don't talk about this, do we? There's male survivors all in the room here. A lot of you grew up like I did, but we don't talk about it." And I didn't want to talk about it. So I walked back into my trauma, and I stood up in front of my police department, my command staff, my police department. I told them an hour-long story about living in violence and surviving as a child. And they all left the classroom, and 3 of the deputy chiefs walked up to me, and I thought they were going to fire me because I tried to kill a man and didn't report it when I got on the police department. And all 3 of them said, "We lived your life. We grew up just like you did." And at that moment, folks, I knew I was in the right place at the right time. And that changed everything for me. Advocates are really smart. I love advocates. I'm advocate trained. I'm very proud of that. If I'd said no to that moment where I disclosed my childhood, things would not have happened. I don't think we would have gotten a domestic violence division at our police department when we did. I hope we eventually would. But when we did, we automatically started lowering the murder rate here in Nashville. I would not have been invited by the IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, in 1987 to travel around the country and show police chiefs how to write policies and train their officers for 38 years, and I still work for IACP today, largest law enforcement organization on the planet. If I'd said no, I would not have been able to teach prosecutors for the National District Attorneys Association for 30 years. I would not have experienced the opportunity to help build a batterers intervention program here in 1985 called Peace, or to help my city build the largest family safety center in the world. I spent a lot of time in Texas because I've got dual citizenship. They let me cross the border. And I know these Texans are always bragging about how everything's big in Texas, And their Family Justice Center in Fort Worth, one safe place, was for a while the biggest, but now ours is the biggest. And I love telling them that when I get to Dallas and Fort Worth. I would not have been asked to be a Fulbright specialist for the State Department and travel to 17 countries and help police and advocates and show them the Nashville way to help the defenseless. And by the way, I was taught all those lessons by Nashville judges and great cops and prosecutors and advocates. I would not have been allowed, or would I have done, 2,500,000 miles. I can't believe that. I've traveled to all 50 states. I've been to 1,355 cities, towns, and villages preaching community responsibility, accountability, progressive policing, and I've had an opportunity to tell them all about the Nashville hot chicken that everybody wants some of now. It's amazing. And it's been a journey. It's been a long journey. It's been actually gentle pressure relentlessly applied is my motto. It hadn't been easy, though. Along the way, I've had police supervisors when I was still at the agency. They'd say, what self-respected woman goes back to her man once after he hits her, and they didn't know me. And all I could think of was, here's somebody else that was standing in the way of progress. And that's all right. It's a long, long, long road. We're not there yet. But I knew I was in the right place. I would not have been able to strip away my abuser's power by introducing him to my friends in law enforcement for 46 years. I have taught thousands and thousands of police officers, and they all know my stepfather because they're going to run into him one day.
So he gave to me. My stepfather gave me a real lesson, and I've used it over and over and over again. So I want you to think tonight about your origin and your journey and who inspired you, and go back to that moment and remember why they inspired you. Why you went from interested bystander to advocate for the cause. You know the answer. It's because it's the right thing to do. You, in turn, must now inspire the next generation. You don't need to be a survivor to do this work. You should not be defined by the last worst thing that has happened to you. Rather, you should be defined by the next best thing that you can do. What's the next best thing you can do? I'm convinced you'll find the answers here with AGAPE, and especially with the great advocates at Morning Star. So let's get to work. Let's make the law keep its promise. Thank you all. God bless you. This is when I started policing, there was a culture inside this very male-dominated profession that was part of the problem, and it is still today. There's still this constant battle in law enforcement, in the criminal justice system, in society, when we find it easier to look at her than to walk in the house and fault him. And it's a comfortable place to go for a lot of people, but I made it my mission the years I was with the police department to make people uncomfortable. You know, we often ask victims, why do they stay? And I think the correct thing to do is look at ourselves and ask our communities, what are we prepared to do for you when you decide to leave? If you got friction, if you got misunderstandings, work on it today, get it out of the way, start working together, because the leaving is a process, it's not an event. If you polish that process and make it easier for a victim to get out, then here's what's going to happen. You're going to save a life.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the invitation to join you and share my appreciation and the appreciation of the Metro Council for the very good work of AGAPE and share the work of your Metro government. I so appreciate the opportunity to hear from Mark Wynn for the first time. What a powerful message. I'm grateful for his lifelong journey supporting victims of domestic violence alongside his late wife, Valerie Wynn, in the Nashville Police Department's Domestic Violence Division. Our city's Office of Family Safety leans heavily on Mark as a national expert for guidance on best practices, and recently awarded Mark and Valerie the Catalysts for Change Award. Thank you also to AGAPE CEO Chandler Means. I understand from Metro's Director of the Office of Family Safety, Diane Lance, that Chandler is someone who walks the walk as a leader and as a foster parent, and can always be counted on to address challenges with a can-do approach, that he is an outstanding collaborator and one of the Office of Family Safety's most important day-to-day partners. AGAPE works out of Metro's Family Safety Center every day, ensuring that victims can obtain orders of protection 24/7 by covering all after-hours, weekend, and holiday shifts. AGAPE Morning Star has been a long-standing partner in the city for victims of domestic violence, always stepping up to fill the gap for victims' most critical needs. Chandler and team have significantly expanded the Morningstar Sanctuary Shelter, doubling its capacity and expanding services. So thank you, Chandler, AGAPE staff, and supporters. As Vice Mayor, I am often asked to respond to the news of the day. And this week, that has been particularly challenging, with an apparent politically motivated assassination, yet another school shooting, and the remembrance of 9/11, or the 9/11 terrorist attacks. These were all tragedies that can feel demoralizing, but hopefully catalyze Americans' resolve to unify and solve big problems. I'm glad that tonight I have the opportunity to focus on the investments and commitments that we as a city have made and continue to make to support victims of domestic violence. It is something as a public servant and Nashvilleian that I am proud of, and I believe it's something we can all be proud of. Over the last 11 years, Nashville has taken bold and meaningful steps. We built the Gene Crow Advocacy Center inside the courthouse, the first and only of its kind in the country, giving victims a safe, supportive place on their day in court. We established Metro's Office of Family Safety, a 53-person department that is unrelenting in its mission to support victims and hold offenders accountable. This was the first department of its kind in the country, and now other cities are trying hard to replicate it. We built the Family Safety Center on Murfreesboro Pike. It is the largest family justice center in the nation and is open 24/7. Victims can walk in and receive help from government and nonprofit partners working side by side. We required all police officers to conduct lethality assessments to better understand the risk that victims face. We created a high-risk intervention panel to review the most dangerous domestic violence cases, bringing together partners across the city, including AGAPE. And just this budget cycle, we added new positions to monitor high-risk offenders' compliance with bond conditions and ensure that there are thorough record checks before bonds are set. I could go on, but I think you can hear and see that Nashville has made significant sustained investments to ensure the safety of victims and the accountability of offenders. I encourage you to read more about this work in the 10-year progress report from the Metro Nashville Office of Family Safety that is linked in your program this evening. Maya Angelou said, "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." That has been the heart of Nashville's work over the last decade. City leaders, nonprofits, advocates, law enforcement, prosecutors, courts, and survivors coming together to learn more, to understand more deeply, and then do better. Each new initiative, each new partnership, each new investment has been built on that commitment to know better and then do better. Because no one person and no single organization can solve this generational blight on family safety. It takes all of us, survivors, nonprofit partners, and committed city leaders. Tonight, I see that commitment in this room, and while there is always more work to be done, it is important to pause and celebrate the wins. In Nashville, there are many. Chandler and the AGAPE team, thank you for remaining on the front lines of this important work. Thank you all.
It can happen to anybody, and it does. I have worked with women over the years who have been the wives or ex-wives or girlfriends of lawyers, judges, doctors, professional people. It can happen to anybody.
I had accepted death. I couldn't fight him. I couldn't get him off of me. So I laid there I remember the prosecutor asking me, did I pass out? And just now in this moment, I do remember passing out, but I couldn't tell him in the interview because I didn't remember. All I know is that somehow I got up off the floor and called the police.
My mom would sleep downstairs on the couch out of fear that my dad would come home and, as a part of the abuse, would knock her down the stairs. I would hear them fighting in the night. I would hear screams and cries and things breaking. I would just start shaking and have these tremors from listening to that.
So 20 years ago, I buried my dad. He was a very abusive person to my mom. Physically, sexually, emotionally, hurt her in many ways. And I believe that almost every day was a battle. It was a fight for her.
And thrown me to the floor and put his foot in my chest and was holding me down and reached to the cabinet, top of the cabinet, and got a gun. He said, it's time for you to go. And that's when I turned my head away because I didn't want my children to see my face if he shot me in the face.
Several times when I left, he had already taken my purse and my wallet, and I went to go grab it, and it was gone. I had nowhere to go. I couldn't call a cab because I had no money. And I had no ID to rent a hotel room or any of those kind of things that you would think, well, you could just go do this. No, I couldn't.
What made it so difficult to leave and stay gone in my situation, I did not have a support system from family. They live out of the state, across the country. I had no money. I had no place to live.
What made it hard for me to leave was the fact that I was embarrassed about everything that was going on. I was humiliated as far as my self-esteem and my pride.
When it was clear that I was done, I said, I'm breaking up with you. He refused to leave. I said, well, I'm leaving. I'm taking our son and leaving. And he took our son and locked himself in our bedroom. And I could hear my son screaming for me, screaming, crying. And I'm like, give me my baby back. And he attacked me because I would not let go, all because I wanted to leave.
I was very angry at my mom. Why don't you do something? Why don't you go say something to somebody at the church? Why not call the police? My mom had a sister who knew all about this, and she offered a safe refuge for my mom and me and my sisters to go to. She was going to take care of us. But my mom wouldn't do that because, unfortunately, she thought that divorce was always a sin, and so she couldn't get out of the house. And so spiritually, she thought she was trapped and stuck.
I finally decided to leave because I know that no one else would take care of my son, my cat, my dog, and my son's 3 favorite hermit crabs. So all the pets and my son were on the order of protection.
At some points he threatened, like, if you ever leave me, I will kill your parents, your family. The fact that he threatened to kill them if I ever decide to leave the relationship. That's why I took place at a shelter. That way I know I'll be safe.
Every time I left, I took my son with me. He did not want to go every time. He kept telling me, Mom, he didn't mean it. Mom, we don't need to go. I like my room. I like my school. Mom, please don't make me start over. Mom, why can't we stay? And I would tell him, because your dad is dangerous and we can't stay. He's gonna hurt your mom. So we didn't stay, we left.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine.
I want to thank the speakers for all that they've done tonight and all they've said. Thank you, Tara, for remembering my sermons. You know, my wife definitely doesn't remember them at all. But I do remember something. A little over 20 years ago, in 2004, in my early 30s, my dad had come down with lung cancer, and he was very sick. And he eventually died, and I was his power of attorney and preacher at his funeral, and buried him, and I was very happy to put him in the ground. The very next year, in 2005, one of my older sisters had gotten colon cancer. She was living in the Lishie Avenue projects at that time, and she was very sick, and she died, and I was her power of attorney and her preacher, and we buried her, and I was very glad to put her in the ground. The very next year, in 2006, my mom suffered a massive stroke, and she died, and I was her power of attorney and her preacher, and we buried her, and I was glad to do that as well. My dad and mom got married in the late 1950s. My dad was a sailor. He came out of the Navy. He was a captain of a POW ship in the Korean War, and he and my mom had fallen in love, and they got married down at the courthouse in Nashville, and my mom thought, hey, this is it. This is going to be great. I'm marrying a Navy man, and life is going to be fantastic. But little did she know that it was going to be a rough way. She was on her way to heaven, but my dad put her hell to get there. And it was tough. It was rough. Almost from day one, my dad became a drunk. He was abusive. He beat my mom. He cussed her. He called her every name in the book. He slapped her. He kicked her in the belly. Pulled her hair through dining room chairs across the house at her. Had multiple affairs on her. It was a very, very tough life for my mom. She didn't realize that my dad, being part of a POW ship, had come out with a lot of trauma from the war, and he just took it all out on my mom and just let her have everything that he wanted to give her. He put her through hell for decades. And then in the 60s, they had two daughters. And unfortunately, that meant my dad was able to have two more people to victimize. He had already emotionally scarred my mom. He had already physically beat my mom. He had already forced my mom to do perverted sexual favors for him that a woman should not be asked to do. But then along came two girls, and he decided to do the same thing to them. And he abused them emotionally, mentally, physically, slapped them, kicked them, hurt them, beat them, and forced them to do things that were very wrong. And my mom would try to stand in the gap between my dad and the two girls, and if she did that, he just decided to just knock her out of the way, literally, so that he could get to them. And this went on for years, in the 60s and into the 70s, and then I was born in 73, and so there was someone else that showed up that he could abuse. He didn't abuse me as much as he did the three women in the house. I mean, there were still slaps. He loved to slap me in the ear, loved to punch me in the face, but not as bad. Nothing as bad, nothing as harsh as what he did to my mom and my two sisters. There were times in the living room we'd be watching TV and he would just get upset and grab a chair and just throw it across the room at my mom's head. I would see him pull her across the living room floor with her hair. My sisters would do everything they could to try to stop him. I was too little. I didn't quite understand what was happening. And everybody dealt with their abuse differently in my house. My oldest sister, when she turned 18, she fell in love with a man and left. She escaped, and I think that was okay. I resented that for a while, but now that I'm older, I get it. I understand. My mom, she just did the best that she could spiritually to try to figure things out. My other sister, though, she dealt with abuse in a different way. She entered into a relationship with me when I was 5 years old, and it lasted almost 8 years. And I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was normal. I didn't know what was right or what was wrong. I just know that she sexually acted out on me, and I was encouraged to do the same thing to her. I also saw many sexual acts between her and other people. And I witnessed this for about 7 or 8 years, all the way up into middle school. She took a route of life where it ended up with drugs, multiple babies with multiple men. She had her first child when she was 15. She lived a life of drugs and alcohol. She ended up with a life of prostitution and then died in the Lachey Avenue projects. My mom, she just could never leave that man. She never could, because of the conservative Church of Christ that we grew up in said that divorce is always a sin and that you can't get out, that you're stuck. And so we stayed. And I resented it. And I didn't understand it. My mom had a sister who was a country music star, and she gave us the opportunity, the financial means of getting out. Told my mom, I will take you and your children, and I will take care of you. You can escape, you can leave. But my mom said, no, we'll just stay, because that's the right thing to do. And as I got older, I was able to be a little bit more defensive towards my dad, a little bit more aggressive, and there were fights, and there were tumbles, and there were moments where I got to stand up. And then I turned 18 and fell in love with my girl Susie, and went to Lipscomb, and I escaped as well. I left my mom to fend for herself. My mom was a special woman. She never had a driver's license. My dad never let her have a driver's license. She could never drive anywhere, so wherever she went, she walked. She walked to church, she'd walk to the store, she'd walk to the doctor, she'd walk to the dentist, she'd always walk. And my dad wouldn't take us to the doctor, wouldn't take us to the dentist, wouldn't take us to school activities. So if we ever had to do something, we had to beg a ride, or we had to walk, or we had to catch a bus. Now, I remember specifically one time I had strep throat, and the medicine was called into the Kmart pharmacy down on Charlotte. And it was cold, and it was rainy, and my dad would not go. He wouldn't go get the medicine for me. And so I laid in my house with strep throat, and my mom walked 5 miles round trip in the rain, in the cold, to get my prescription for my strep throat. And I absolutely hated him for that. I hated him more for that than anything else, it seemed like, for some reason. And then as the years went by, my dad's schizophrenia got worse. The police would find him in the middle of Charlotte Pike driving his imaginary POW ship. And so, thankfully, the VA was able to get my dad into a rest home for disabled veterans, and we were able to put him there. And for the last few years of my mom's life, she lived in a high-rise senior retirement center, not having to look over her shoulder, not having to worry if she's going to make her husband mad, but she was able to just rest. And that was a blessing. And then my dad, when he had the cancer, he was put in a hospital. And it was just me and my mom that night in the hospital room. And the doctor came in and gave us good news that my dad was getting better, that he might make it. And then my dad left the room, and I looked at my mom, and I was just furious. This isn't good news for us. So I took the pillow, put it on my dad's face, and tried to kill him. All the while, my mom screaming and crying, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this." And of course, I stopped, and we got in my car and drove back home crying. So yeah, I'll stand before you and tell you very simply that I was very glad to put my dad in the ground that day, because I wanted him to meet the judge of the living and the dead. And I was very glad to put my sister in the ground that day, because I had been hurt and abused. I'm a 52-year-old guy who's very confused about sexuality because of a 8-year relationship with my sister. I was glad to put her in the ground that day so she could meet the judge of the living and the dead. And I was glad to put my mom in the ground that day, because I think she went to the gates of heaven, and someone met her at the gates of heaven and said this to her: "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I'll make you faithful over many. Come and enjoy your master's happiness." I believe at this moment my mom experiences peace and calm. No tears, no pain, no worries, no anxiety, no nervous breakdowns. I am a survivor of domestic abuse. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. And you may sit here in your chair tonight thinking, "Man, you know what? I don't know how much I can do. I don't know how much I can help." You can help. You can help someone like me. Someone like these folks that were singing this little light of mine around the room. You can do something. You can make a real solid difference. At your tables tonight is a program. Inside of that program is a donation card. And we just need a couple of things from you. A couple of things that might not seem like a lot to you, but boy, it seems like a lot to people like me. First, we'd like to have your contact information so we could stay in touch with you. Next, if you want to contribute tonight to places like AGAPE, to Morning Star Sanctuary, we could use that money to make a difference in people's lives. You can do that by donating by check. You can place it in an envelope that's in that program. You could fill out a card that's in there and decide to pledge to give later. If you don't have those means, you could always pay by credit card by scanning the QR code with your phone to give securely online, and it'll be taken care of. It'll go straight to Morning Star. And that card also has a place where you can show how you can volunteer, how you want to be interested in doing that. But I'm asking you tonight, as a 52-year-old West Nashville kid who has been beaten, abused, and touched in ways that he should not have done, I'm asking you, I'm begging you, take a moment, complete those cards, those envelopes, put everything in there that you can, think about it, pray about it, put them in a large white envelope before you go, and somebody will come and pick that up. But on behalf of me and the people that are standing around this room with these candles, we thank you. God bless you.
I have a script I'm supposed to read. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, David. I've always, shoot. To my staff, I've always known what you've done and what you do. I've always known intellectually what walked through those doors, what walks onto the shelter. Even tonight, you can't hear me. But Tracy in Albany at the Family Safety Center, holding it down for that 24/7, the largest family safety center in the country, receiving victims tonight, advocating for them, safety planning for them, helping them write an order of protection so they can get some level of protection from the police department and the sheriff's department. For some reason tonight, it is real. It is real. This is the work we do. It's hard, it's heavy, and it's hard. I'm going to read the script in a minute. Our counselors close the door and hear the stories of David, Mark, their families, the stories of our survivors that are around the wall right now with holding candles. They hear those stories. Our caseworkers in foster care walk into homes where people, women and children have been abused and have to remove them. Our foster families then care for those children and the trauma that they've experienced as they live that out in their own homes, in the foster homes. Our advocates at the shelter, when they leave and when they run and when they get out and when they can, they come to the shelter or they come to the Family Safety Center for help. And Agape's there. Family Safety Center advocates are there. Police are there. The sheriff's there. But tonight, for some reason, for me, this is more real than it's ever been. So I'm going to read the script, and we'll get through tonight, and we'll finish here in just a little bit. And we will get out on time. So thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. It's been an honor to share this evening with you. A special thank you again to Lieutenant Michael Hammond, to Lieutenant Joseph Freeman, and to our champions. Gina, Mary Lee, Linda, Melna. I didn't really know about Nick, and I knew about Rudy. Thank you for the work you guys have done for so long. Gina, the story, you're legendary, and Mark knows that. Anybody who's been involved in this knows you're a legendary person in victim support and services and advocacy. As we close tonight, I want to remember tonight's theme, Beauty from Ashes, and the importance of today's date. Out of pain and loss, God brings healing and new beginnings, and that is the story that we celebrate here tonight, and it is the story you are helping us write for so many families through Agape, including the families that you see here with candles tonight. I want to read this. We got a comedy event coming up. It's in your program. There's a card in there. Check it out. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about it. There's sponsorship opportunities. It's going to be really cool. We got a special guest. We can't tell you who it's going to be, but he's a really funny guy, and he's going to be there, along with the other comedians that are there. We hope you'll come. It'll be on the 11/9 instead of 9/11, so we hope you'll join us, and you can hear more about that later. But now, as we leave, I want to do a little something special. I want us together to sing the song, This Little Light of Mine. And following the singing of this song, the lights will come up, and you'll have time, if you didn't get to finish filling out your form, and as David so well said, support this work that we do. About 65% of the Morning Star budget and the advocacy budget comes from government funding. And then we have to raise the other 35% just really for operational things and not really for additional things that we want to do. So your support tonight would be really great if you haven't already made that. So now I'm going to ask you, if you would, stand and like good old church kind of thing, we're going to sing a song together. And we'll sing it a little faster than the ladies did earlier. And wasn't that beautiful? They were in the back. You may have thought that was a recording. It was so good. It was not. It was them singing that beautiful song. And I want to remind us of the verse. Jesus finishes up with the Sermon on the Mount, or after the Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, and in the first part of 14, and then in 16, he says, "You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." We'll sing the song together. I think I'll be okay with it. And then once the song is over, the lights will come up and you will be dismissed. I hope you'll stay around and fellowship for a while. I told you this would be a heavy night. It's heavy for us all. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere we go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere we go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere we go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Thank you. Go in peace.